All right, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our next component of Workforce Wednesday. Workforce Wednesday is an intentional discussion in which we want to highlight the different jobs that are offered out there in industry. Maybe jobs that you're like, I didn't know that existed, or, how do I get into that afterwards? Especially, how can we make sure that you're being smart with your time here as a Jaguar? Are there internships you need to take advantage of? Are there certifications? So we hope this is a great conversation and a great library of wonderful resource that you can use later on. So today I'm really excited. We get to be joined by David Velez, who's actually one of our alumnus, which is awesome because I think David did a really exceptional job when he was here at A&M San Antonio, not only being involved in professional associations. I know, David, you were a big part of ACM, which is Association of Computing Machinery, which is still alive and well. So thank you for all your work in getting that launched. Also, he was really successful in launching from internship to career. So we love to kind of hear his perspective. Now, a couple of housekeeping before we fully get started in this conversation is we are going to be respectful of making sure we're keeping the mics off if we're not speaking. And that's just making sure we're limiting feedback in the background. Also, if you do have any questions throughout this process, please just go ahead and enter them into the chat and we'll go ahead and address them as we go. Also, this video is being recorded for our YouTube channel, so you can actually view it within 24 hours on Tamusa Maze. So say if you're like, hey, I couldn't attend the entire session, make sure to watch it later on. So we, again, hope this is a great resource for you in your career journey. So let me go ahead and turn off the slide deck just so we can have a conversation. All right, David, so let's get started. Again, I'm really excited about some of the insight you can offer to your fellow Jaguars here at A&M San Antonio. So the first question I have for you, if you could tell us a little bit more about your educational and professional background.
Sure. So my professional background goes back about a decade. So before I went into Tamusa as a student, I had some experience in IT. So I started selling computers at Best Buy, believe it or not, like around 2006. And that's how I kind of got introduced to computers and kind of started my career path kind of in that direction. Shortly afterwards, I became a help desk like a specialist. So I would take like phone calls and assist in troubleshooting matters. And then I got involved in systems. So like I had to manage a whole bunch of servers. I was a kind of like a systems administrator and a jack of all trades in regards to services that are being offered in a company. And then from there, I kind of figured out that it was not exactly what I wanted to do. So that's why I went back to the university. My wife actually encouraged me to go back, and got my major in computer science. So that involves a lot of like development, software engineering, coding, that kind of thing. Yeah. So that's kind of my background.
Nice, thank you for that. Now, can you identify what are some of the key skills that are really needed for your current role, and how have you really developed them over time?
So some of the key skills that I've needed in my role they cover actually many different facets of IT. Um, so I came from that systems engineering background. Um, so my job actually it entails both skill sets, both systems and the development side and the software side of things. So this is like networking, like ports, protocols, certificates, encryption, systems in terms of like infrastructure services, and this is both Windows and Linux. Also, software engineering, such as dealing with open source APIs, utilizing open source technologies and frameworks, working with both backend and front end systems that span a few languages. So, some of those languages I currently use in my job are Golang, Python, and JavaScript primarily. Yeah. So even before I started my job at CACI, I didn't know Golang, so that was a new opportunity for me. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I love anything in tech is so lifelong learning, right? You have to keep going.
Yes, languages, frameworks are coming out all the time. So it's a good idea to like take the time to know what the market looks like. Who's using what technologies, and that will really kind of help you kind of discern what are some skills that I need before I get out into the market. Before I start applying, and even practicing a little bit, right? So that's really helpful.
I'm curious, how did your time here at A&M San Antonio really prepare you for, life after graduation?
So some of the things that the way that I perceive like Tamusa and the way that they assist you is that they're kind of like they kind of push you off in the right direction, right? They allow you to kind of think critically. So if you learn a language like Java or C++, they're pushing along the path of like, okay, if I understand one of these languages, I should be able to translate what I learned about that language into others that could be similar. And from there, it kind of makes it easy for you to adapt, right? But the only way that you can really adapt is that you have to understand that framework. You have to understand that language. What are the key features? And a lot of those key features you're going to find in other languages. So it allows you to, pick up a bunch of skills really quickly. It's just a matter of like syntactical, like just knowing the language, the syntax. So just getting exposed to that and the concepts, how algorithms work. A lot of that is conceptual, right? So if you have the conceptual aspect down and you know how to visualize it, even in your head, or if you write it down on a piece of paper and you can design it, you should be able to implement it in just about almost any language, right? And that's what they teach you in school. But the key step here is that a lot of it still falls on your responsibility. You learn these concepts, but then you have to apply them, right? Because if you're learning something new, a skill, it requires you to repetitively do it until it sinks in. At least for me, that was the case. I'm a little bit of a slow learner that way. I can't just listen to a professor and be like, okay, I got it. That makes sense. No, for me, I actually have to apply it. So I have to go home. I have to understand what they were trying to say. And then when I can see it in front of me actually work, I'm just like, okay, so how can I take this concept and make it better? And that to me is a really important concept when you're learning computer science.
Excellent advice. Wonderful, wonderful job on that. Now, so I when I looked in your background again, I saw internship in there.
Yes.
Now, with internship is one of those things where what should students expect from an internship and how do they really make it worthwhile for their experience? What advice would you have for them?
So definitely apply, right? I think it is a great opportunity because it helps you understand the market better. It helps you understand the industry. And the experiences are going to vary, right? Like my experience is going to be different from somebody else that had an internship. In my case, mine was very good. I had a team that wanted to work with me and allowed me to be very creative, which is not what I expected. To be honest, I thought they're going to be like, this is what we want, this is how we want it, and that's it. It's going to be this language, it's going to be this framework. We don't really want your creative input. I mean, that's honestly the mindset that I was kind of preparing with. But what I found was is that they were actually, very helpful. They're just like, okay, you can write it in just about any language, and let's see what you can come up with. So they gave me kind of like open-ended pursuits, and they allowed me to implement solutions for these pursuits in my own way. So it felt like, what I was creating was it was like my identity. And the great thing is that even if you get stuck somewhere and you're not familiar with some of these things, they were there to provide assistance. So I think it is a great opportunity for everybody because it's not something that you can get anywhere else, right? They might teach you a new language. They might expose you to certain frameworks that you didn't know existed, and that kind of makes your imagination even grow even more. So and it looks great on your resume because it shows that you actually had interest in the market, you had interest in this industry, and now like even competitors to that one company that you may have been with, they're like, hey, like this person knows this stuff, maybe we can snipe this guy, we can take him over to our side. And so it kind of opens the floodgates because then other companies are going to start looking in your direction. And it's because you have to take the time to do these internships and seek them out, talk to people, shake their hands, have a business card ready. Like that was one thing that I did. I had a business card even though I didn't really need one. I had one anyway because it sometimes it was inconvenient to carry around my resume, and having this folder was kind of ridiculous. Just scan my QR code and it'll take you to my LinkedIn. Easy.
Wonderful advice. Yeah, we actually do free printouts of business cards at the Maze Center. So if y'all ever need them,
I
we
used
got
them.
you.
Yeah, I used them.
Did
that
you
that's where I
really?
got them. Yeah, that's how I started. Then I made my own. Yeah,
And I appreciate that. Thank you.
of course.
Now, okay, so also kind of when I was introducing you, I was talking about ACM.
Yes.
What was that like for you again to kind of start an organization, but also what was the benefit of it and why should students look at associations like that?
Gosh, you learn a lot from other people. I made some friends that I feel like are kind of like lifelong friends now. Um, so when I started ACM, I did it because when I was in IT before college, one of the struggles that I had is that I didn't really have like a great teacher. So I didn't know what direction I should really go. And I wanted to kind of expose some of the industry thought into an organization where we can kind of culminate ideas and communicate with one another and create teams to, to kind of help each other with, various projects or get involved in the community, which we ended up doing. Um, so the ACM to me is really important because like I actually learned a lot. Like we offered tutoring at the time, so if you were stuck on certain like homework, there's that immediate benefit that somebody can kind of point you in the right direction, and that's really important, right? Because sometimes you don't know what resources are available to you, and that camaraderie that you get, from other people can really like turn out to, be really useful to you because they might know certain skill sets that you don't have, so you can kind of communicate that out. And the friends that I made, like Harry and Artem, they're both graduates. They graduated with me in the fall of 2019. Um, we were able to do some really cool stuff together, but it would have never happened if we didn't really get part of this community and I didn't bump into them in the ACM. And then we started like tackling huge projects for, even the city of San Antonio, doing the project that we did for the voice services and, getting catalog services out of like Amazon Alexa and Google Assistant. And like Artem, for example, was an amazing like developer on the front end, which I was terrible at. I could not compete against him. So he was able to tackle those tasks while I did the back end. So I did a lot of the logic, and we worked together really well. And you'll never get that sense of fun. And the thing is, like with friends, they, especially like, really good friends like that, they're going to push you, and then in return you're going to push them. So like you may get to a point where you want to give up, and of course, we'll call each other at night and, using like Discord or something, and be like, hey, you can't give up because I didn't give up. You got to keep going, you got to push forward. And that's how we got better. We kept pushing each other. So ACM is great for that.
Yeah, that sense of community goes a long way, right? When you're going into a different field. So
It
very
really
cool.
does. Yes,
And plus
teamwork.
they do competition work, don't they?
They do. Yeah, you get involved with a lot of competitions, like, with, different universities, groups. Deloitte does a yearly hackathon, and it's really difficult, by the way. But I think the first time we did a hackathon, we got destroyed. I'm not gonna lie to you, like I got totally destroyed. Um, but it made me want to try harder, right? Even though like we lost, I couldn't take that defeat, and I was just like, no, no, no. Next time around, we're gonna destroy them. And so there was a lot of studying and getting ready for it again, and we did. We eventually like we beat UTSA for the first time ever, like, in a hackathon, because they always have their bragging rights, and I was tired of it. I was just like, no, we're going to beat UTSA this time, and we did. And it was a very difficult hackathon. We got the right team, and these are people that constantly were, we interacted with in the ACM, and almost on a weekly basis, we would talk about it like, hey, remember that time we lost? Not this time. And then we would like, look things up, try to figure out like do other challenges that are available for free. You can go online. There's like hundreds of hackathons going on. And that's where you can practice to get ready for that big one that is, community, right? Like where you get to kind of show off your school and show off your skills. And then afterwards, like companies like, especially for the winners, they come seek you out. That's a big deal. And these are not small companies.
Oh yeah, totally echo that. NSA has a hackathon every year that just so happens again one of our student groups was represented, and sure enough, one of the members did get noticed where it helped with an internship track. So it goes a long way, and I think sometimes it's intimidating for students to kind of take that first try. You're like, oh my goodness, what if I fail? Just
There's
get
nothing
back
wrong
up,
with
right?
failing. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with failing. In fact, I tell a lot of people this, but like sometimes losing is more important in the beginning than winning. Because like when you lose, it makes you realize where your flaws are at, right? And if you don't know where your flaws are at, there's nothing to really tune. There's you don't know where your weaknesses are at, and you don't want to have those weaknesses exposed when you have a job, right? You want to, it's okay to have weaknesses. There's nothing wrong with weaknesses, but you definitely want to like limit that scope to where you know how to adapt to that weakness or how to overcome it. And so getting defeated in the beginning is totally okay. Everybody goes through that defeat. We talked to the people that won in our first hackathon. That was the first thing I did. I went to the first place people and I was like, how did y'all do it? Like, I want to understand like where we messed up. And they gave us a lot of insight. And, they said that, what I'm basically saying, it's just like we've been there. Like we know what it's like to lose. So I'm going to give you some good advice. And that really helped us. So don't be afraid of losing. It's part of life. And then from there, like you get better and better and better until you eventually do win. And believe me, if you're pushing, you will win.
So that goes to my next question. Again, so now you're in the professional realm. What has been your favorite professional project so far?
Let's see. I would say creating my own REST API for the company and setting up like their database because there's a database that a lot of developers used. Um, but there was not an easy way to really retrieve the data, and there was like no medium because they didn't want developers to have direct access to the database because who knows, someone nukes it, then you got a big problem. Of course, we have backups and all that, but you never want to like have that kind of inconvenience. And so having some sort of API to communicate with it where it's just like read only and getting the data that you need to maybe use it for like mapping or for analytics, that kind of thing. I was able to create that for them, tune the database as well. So it's not just creating it; it was just making it better, so where the queries would respond more quickly. Because if you're talking about thousands of records, okay, not a big deal. But when you're talking about millions and millions and millions and multi-million, records, retrieving that data can be a challenge. And so I had to figure out how do I get these like millions of records to where like there's certain datas like columns and fields that are constantly asked for, like the same thing over and over by most developers. What I did was is that I created an index table with a view that basically like separates all that data, and so you can access that data more quickly. And I also did some configuration on the back end so that the machine could utilize more memory, more processing power, dedicated for those queries. That was a really neat experience for me because I didn't know that much about databases, and it forced me to figure out like how do I make it better? Because I could have just left it the way it was and they probably would have been okay with it. But now that I've learned that on my own time, a lot of people are now asking questions like, wow, like if we can do that, what else can we do? And that's a pretty cool discussion to have.
So I think we have a great question in the chat that I want to address with you. So you had mentioned that college experience and degree has been valuable for you.
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts about the tech industry opening some positions to those without a college degree? Can you share perks of college degrees in your industry? Again, could they be promotion, better preparedness? Where do you see the pros and cons of this?
So you can kind of go either way, right? Like, you hear the stories of people that they drop out of college, and you hear this from like Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, some of those other, giants, right? And but the thing is that the degree definitely has some benefits, right? Like you get exposed to like networks that you may not be typically used to, right? Like you get exposed to like these career fairs that you go to where you can communicate with these people. Definitely the degree in accomplishing your tasks. Like here's the thing: if you get a degree and you don't really spend a lot of effort in like understanding the industry, maybe it's not going to be so useful, right? Because you didn't do anything on your part to really help yourself, right? You just did it to get the quick A, and I just want my GPA to look high. The GPA is great, but after a certain amount of period, if you've been out of college for 10 years, no one cares about that 4.0. They care about, like, what does your portfolio look like? So there's some things like GitHub or GitLab that I use. These are like online repos that where you can share your code before you graduate, that people can look at and be like, okay, like not only does this person have a 4.0, but I can see their portfolio. I mean, this code looks really good. Maybe there's some things you can tune here and there, but the effort is going to be really, really important. So the getting a degree definitely opens doors. Like, there are definite filters in the industry, and that's becoming more prominent these days. So there's like some companies that they won't even look in your direction unless you do have a degree. And that's not all of them. Of course, there's also like like those boot camps that you can do, like Code Up here in the city. Code Up's pretty awesome, like, believe it or not. They do some really neat stuff. They even do like some conferences every month or so, and you can like attend them, and they're pretty neat. But they're fine tuned to only one specific area, while in a degree you kind of have a variance. So you go to Code Up for like JavaScript and some frameworks, but that's all you know. And so all your jobs are going to be based off that one skill. Well, in a college setting, you're supposed to know networking, you're supposed to know databases, you're supposed to know back end, front end, app development. And if you took all those things seriously and you applied all those skills on your own personal time and understood it, it just makes you a little bit of a more like a better, like, I guess, prospect for a company, because like with a startup or like Code Up, that's only a few months. With a college degree, it shows that you're able to do something rigorously for several years to accomplish, um, you know, passing your grades and getting your degree. And a lot of people do find value in that. So it can go both ways. You can survive both ways, but whatever path you choose, as long as you put your time into it, you'll be okay.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think just a reminder that the degrees are going to kind of have diversity in regard to still exploring the industry, especially if you're not sure yet what component you want to go into. So appreciate that.
Of course.
Now, again, looking at your professional, I'm curious. So we've mentioned wins, right? What are some challenges that you face? Like, what was that learning moment like for you, and how did you get past it?
One of the challenges I had was actually, and it's I'm doing right now something called I've been doing some compliance work in my field, in my job. So I've been recently been made a lead of this effort. And the idea is that we're trying to make all of our processes and our procedures compliant with certain standards that exist in the industry. And some of these standards are like, there's like literally like dozens of like compliance standards that a lot of clients are looking for. Like, do you securely store your data in an encrypted fashion? Are you using certain technologies to make sure that you protect our confidentiality in terms of our data? Like, how do you handle that data? Um, are there certain things in place that these clients are looking for? And so that means that I had to write up like a lot of like policies. It required a lot of diligence, like writing business plans, solution proposals, project planning, which I was not really used to because I'm more of a grunt. Like, I write code, I manage systems. And one of the things that I kind of, when I was doing my internship with CACI, I asked to be put in a leadership position. That was one of the things that I expressed to them, like, hey, I want to be a leader in this company. And so they're giving me that opportunity to do so, which opened up a different field, which I was not very familiar with. So that was a challenge for me. Like, I had to learn all that stuff. Like, I had to like do a lot of coordination that involved a lot of, various departments and department heads, and then write policies that people are going to have to, abide by, which is great in some ways and tough in others. And that means that when you expose these to the different teams that are going to have to fall under these compliance, obligations, you have to explain to them why it's happening. Like there is a benefit to it. Like the benefit is that you're going to get more trust from your customer. Yes, it's going to make things a little bit more difficult because you're having to implement certain things that you didn't have to do before, but it protects you, and it creates that trust and that loyalty with customers because you're going out of your way to make sure that they feel like you're doing a good job with the information that they're providing you. And so, with that, you learn a lot of new things too, right? Because not only do you have to, do this stuff, you have to implement it. So that means you have to understand how it works. And that makes you learn new things, like how do I implement, cryptographic methods of, transporting like data from one place to another and, making sure that that works properly, right? So maybe there's a little bit of like offensive security in that. So like you have to like try to hack your own stuff to make sure that this works. So there's a lot of different approaches. There's the defensive, approach, the offensive. But for me, like, the thing that was a challenge to me was, writing up those proposals and actually dealing with these department heads and these really intense meetings. Because some of them were, they were not completely open to it, and so we had to present it in a way that, they felt comfortable, like, okay, like you went through a lot of planning. This makes sense to me. This looks good. Let's make it happen. And then you're going to have a lot of people like jump on board and try to assist in the best way that they can. So that was new to me. I've done compliance work in the past, but it was never like that. So that was neat.
That's a huge project, and which you talked especially a lot about communication, right? So not only strong communication with your tech team, but also being able to articulate that to an end user. I think that's something that is always we want to really shine in the computer information systems and computer science program, is that communication is going to be a major asset for you.
It is. It is. And that was like the one of my biggest weaknesses like growing up. I used to like stutter a lot. Sometimes I still do. And but that's okay. Like I learned to, communicate, and that's why ACM is also good because if you're doing workshops, you have to like communicate this stuff to everybody in a way that makes sense, right? So like, and the thing is like they're students, right? They're in the same place as you are. So there, there's not that much pressure. You get to kind of learn from them. And sometimes you even get correction from certain students. Like some of my buddies will be like, actually it works this way. Like, you kind of got that wrong. And that's okay because it's good critique. And so as you're going through this process, you learn so much and how to articulate, the message that you're trying to bring across. So that's it's really awesome.
Okay, so the next question I have, okay, so COVID, of course, is kind of revamped and kind of reorganized what workforce looks like right now.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what have you done not only individually to adjust to this different work environment, but also what has your team done to prepare for this?
So my company, like, they definitely took it seriously, like in the beginning. And so they created the initiative for us to work from home, which is really great, so we could take some of our equipment home. And and the thing about IT that's really great is that you can do a lot of this work from anywhere. So in terms of like the IT field, it wasn't particularly difficult for us. Maybe you have to adapt to a couple of new technologies that you're going to probably get exposed to anyway in the future because you're in IT. Like how to VPN into certain sites. How do you make sure that that transaction is secure? So for me, it wasn't, incredibly difficult. I have my own VPNs at home. So I already knew a lot about a lot of this stuff. I had to implement a couple of things on, the company side to make sure that all this was implemented correctly. But in terms of like, COVID and like the effect it's had, it's definitely made it a challenge in terms of, you're kind of used to going, into the building and like kind of meeting your coworkers and your friends, and so the collaboration there like is a little bit different now, because now everyone's at home. And it's really hilarious too because sometimes you have meetings and you hear like a baby crying in the background. Mine does, every once in a while. And it's such a different world for everybody because everyone's at home, and I think there is a lot of stress involved, right? Like mental health has become a very important issue that people have to communicate about, right? The great thing about our company is that you can express these concerns, like, hey man, like I'm really having a tough time, because I just feel like cooped up at home. And a lot of the companies are really, willing to help you out through those circumstances because they understand, and they understand it because they're going through the same thing. I had a conversation like that about, a few months ago that I had to admit, I was just like, mentally, like I kind of feel trapped. I'm just at home all day. And, my manager told me is it's like, you would be surprised, but like pretty much everyone in the team has told me that at one point or another. They all feel the same way. And just knowing that really helped me. Just because like it's like, wow, okay, so I'm not the only one really struggling with this. Um, so a lot of these companies are cognizant of that, and they're aware of these problems. So it's not, don't be afraid to, to talk about it, to talk about how you feel. A lot of these companies, are a little bit different these days. They really do care about how you feel because you're a valuable asset to them. You're a valuable person even. And that's a change that has been really awesome in the IT industry, especially as of late. I think maybe some decades ago it may not have been the same. You're more like a number. But with a lot of these big companies, they're taking your opinion seriously. They take how you feel seriously, and they're more than willing to help you get through it. So those are some of the things I experienced with the pandemic.
Yeah, I think absolutely organizations are really kind of rethinking how they take care of personnel and making sure again they're acknowledged and they let them know, this is a safe space for you. So thank you for mentioning it. I totally do see a shift in the IT industry over the past few years where it's very much now about the person as a whole, as a part of a larger team unit. So very cool.
Of course.
Now, if we can go back in time. So when you first started college, right? That undergrad you where you're like, okay, do I know everything? I don't know. What is one piece of advice you would offer your undergrad you back in the day?
Let's see. Practice all the time. Practice your code. Communicate with people. Network. Use ACM. If you don't like ACM, go to another organization that you feel like is that works for you. People are different, right? So like maybe the ACM is not the right community for you. You have many different communities that you can be a part of, but I still encourage it. It doesn't even have to be IT related. It can be business related. It can be marketing. It can be just about anything because IT bleeds into many different industries. And there's no industry nowadays that cannot survive, without some sort of IT in place. Everybody has it. Everybody has a computer. So technology has really like changed the way we do business these days. So like even getting to know people in different industries is very, very handy. You maybe like you want to create an application after you graduate, but you don't have like a good idea of how the market works. So maybe you want to go to a marketing professional, right? Or a marketing student who's, on the rise and really wants to understand this stuff and has that same desire. So, even communicating with all these various groups is, I think, would be beneficial to every student. Uh, don't be afraid to talk to people. You would find a lot of people that share the same kind of views that you do, the same kind of goals and ambitions. Um, Always be curious. In IT, the best way to be successful, I feel, or at least one of the best ways, is to always remain curious. I used to say that all the time in ACM. Remain curious, because if you lose that curiosity, you lose that passion, and you don't want to lose that. And there's definitely going to be moments where you find traction to where like maybe you slow down a little bit, you get burned out here and there, and that's okay. Everyone burns out. um, I've burned out. Like when I graduated, I burned out so hard. I was like, I barely coded for about like 6 months, and then slowly I got back into I started making my own project, a personal project that I'm working on. And I've found a lot of momentum in the last couple of months getting back into it. So you're going to have those moments where you're really, really, burning on all cylinders. And then you'll have moments where you need a little bit of a break. And I think it's okay to have that, right? As long as you have like, the long-term goal, like you have a goal of like, okay, I'm going to come right back to this. I need to step back a little bit. But never lose the edge of curiosity. Always look at news articles, look at what companies are using, being aware of your surroundings is so important, and find something that really interests you. There's so many different parts of IT. Like I've mentioned some of them. You got the systems, you got back end, front end, you got the algorithms, data science. There's so many different variances. There's no way you can master them all. There's because they all go down like their own various like rabbit holes. So definitely try to figure out, where do I fit in into this picture? What really interests me? And the only way you can really figure that out, you have to try it. Unfortunately, you like football, you like basketball, you like golf. How are you going to really know unless you try it, right? Maybe you look on TV and you say, man, golf looks boring to me. And then you go on the field and you take a couple of swings with the club, and you're like, you know what, man, like, I love this. This is a lot of fun, you know. But you can't know that until you actually experience it. So that's why I say, like, when you do your homework is not enough. Don't just stop at homework. You know, take it the extra mile. Sometimes they ask, like, just a little requirement, but you can make it maybe a little bit better and then turn it in, right? Then your professor's like, okay, that's really cool. Maybe we can, talk about this idea that you implemented. um, it creates conversations, right? So I think that's a really, really big.
Okay, looks like we have a question in the chat from Roberto, who's actually one of our CIS students. So, hi, Robert, how are you? So he's asking, okay, so hey, David, speaking of the diverse roles in IT, but how would you go about transitioning to different roles in an internship or job? Say from software development to maybe working more with data, either working with databases or analytics. Is that something where you talk to the department head or a mentor, perhaps? And then thanks for sharing your advice.
Of course. So you'll see that a lot. Like with me, like I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I've done a lot of different things, and my company has asked me to do a lot of different things. The thing is that if that's not something you wanted to do, don't be entirely opposed to it, because you might learn something about it. Like, for example, with data, everyone has to deal with data, including software engineers, because you still have to understand like the stack, right? Now, obviously, if it's not really what you want to do, like in the end, you can definitely talk to, like, your mentor, and kind of communicate that out, because it really does help to express to them what your interests are, because a lot of mentors are interested in knowing that, so they can kind of hone your focus in that direction. um, but also, like, don't be afraid to give it a try. Like I said, like with development, a lot of people skip databases, and databases are actually super important when it comes to like software engineering, and how you query these databases to get the data that you want. How do you like work with JSON objects, CSVs, and XML, the various formats that they use nowadays. There's GeoJSON objects that a lot of people use for geographical coordinates. A lot of that stuff comes from not just flat files, but database files. And so data has the various like ways of like obtaining that knowledge. Open source technologies and open source intelligence. Um, all that stuff is really, really interesting. And the thing is, like, let's say you're dealing with data, you're still going to have to write a program in order to interact with that data, right? Data at rest, I mean, it's not doing anything. It's just there. And so, like, it's more than just open up like an Excel document. Like, what if they want you to do data visualization based off the data that you have, they have accumulated for the last 5 years? So maybe communicating that with a mentor can give you context to what they are trying to get out of you, right? Maybe it doesn't make sense initially, but it can be clarified with communication. So always ask a lot of questions, especially if you're not sure. Never be afraid to ask questions. And even if you don't think about those questions right at the moment, because I'm guilty of that many times, and I think about it like, man, I should have asked this, I should have asked that. You still have a chance, right? They're still interested in you. They invested in you for a reason, and you can still communicate with them, through an email, or when they come by, like, hey, I forgot to ask this question. Like, how does this help me, like, as a developer? Can you give me like a good idea of like how we could use software development in context of this data? And believe me, when you ask questions like that, people typically love to answer those questions. So hope that helps.
So previously you had mentioned networking. And we're big advocates of networking. We're very supportive. We're like, go meet all the people. What advice would you have for a student if they're still kind of nervous about that process? It's kind of scary sometimes to go to those events, or how do you start a conversation? How did you handle it, and what should they know about that?
A lot of it, and you don't want to always like depend on a friend, but I went with friends. I talked to my friends about it, like, hey, like I'm kind of curious about this, but I'm not sure what to expect. And most of the time you'll find like, these people are like, they're interested in the same thing, right? Because they want to network too, but they're kind of nervous about it. So sometimes going in a group really is encouraging. And, so like I'll tell my buddies about it, and it'll be like, okay, we're all going to show up at this time, and we're going to go in and, have our resumes ready and our business cards. Um, so definitely that helps. That's why I like the community aspect of like ACM, and like NCSA is another group that I think Dr. Asmati is a faculty sponsor for. Um, you definitely want to just try it, right? Like even if you don't have that, like maybe everyone's too busy. Don't be afraid to just try it. You don't have to be there forever. You can be there for just a few minutes, just to kind of be exposed to it, just kind of understand how it works. And um and you'll find that the more you go, the more comfortable you become with it. So maybe you only want to shake hands with maybe two or three people, and then like you're like, okay, exposure overload. I need to go back home. I've had that feeling. I was more, believe it or not, I didn't really talk a lot, and I was very uncomfortable with even speaking on a stage, and I was more introverted. So like for me, like I didn't like being in public places like that for an extended period of time, but I kept going because I want a job. I wanted to be in this industry because I love it. And so like maybe the first time around I was only there for a few minutes, and then I was like, okay, I think I got what I wanted out of it. And then the next time it came up again, like I would go again, and this time for a little bit longer. And maybe I did a little bit of research on the companies I was interested in, so I definitely communicated with them first. um, so definitely do like your research first, know who's going to be there, find out what their interests are, what industries are in, and then from there you can kind of narrow down like the people that you really want to. And um, and and just keep going. Like there's also career fairs like in the city that is not by Tamusa, right? Go to those and see how those are like, and you'll find that there's a lot of people that are willing to like talk to you a little bit and give you insight. And these are like professionals, right? These are people that are like way high up the ladder on some of these companies, and it's really cool to hear what they have to say about the industry. And sometimes they'll give you like insight in places that you never thought existed. So it's worth your while.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally get the introvert thing, just kind of taking in dosages. So keep trying. Thank you for that. And that is pretty much wrapping up our session. I'm going to have a couple of closing slides. David, I just want to thank you for your time today. I think you did phenomenal. You really offered an honest voice and really kind of gave some great pieces of advice. I think they're very much doable. And I think it was good for students to hear, like, what, sometimes you do fall, but you keep on going forward and you can see success, which obviously you are evidence of that.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, so let me go ahead and give me 1 second, everyone. Okay, Jaguars. So just a reminder to go ahead and mark your attendance on JagSync. You can actually watch the replay of this, and you have 72 hours to actually log your attendance. I also put the URL in the chat box just in case, if that makes it easier for you. And then join us for our next Workforce Wednesday. We'll be hosting in a couple weeks, in which we will be inviting a really special guest. Angel Lerma is also come from the city of San Antonio, in which he has a communications undergrad. So he's going to talk how he's really leveraged that to work in some really cool youth programs with the city. And so you get to hear, just how proud he is of everything. He's very excited. So we're really looking forward to welcoming to the Jaguar family. And then don't forget, tomorrow is actually our virtual all major fair. So check it out. Make sure to register on Handshake. Students, you do need to sign up for sessions beforehand. So the nice thing is that not only can you interact with employers in a 30-minute group session, but say you're like, you know what, I have this employer that I'm really passionate about talking to. You can schedule one-on-one to meet with them in a virtual environment, and you have 10 minutes to chat with them and say what kind of career goals that you have for yourself. So make sure to check it out. We're really excited to support that tomorrow. So log into Handshake. And then don't forget that the May Center, even though we're kind of in this virtual environment, we are still here for you. We are still offering virtual drop-in hours in which we will connect with you if you have maybe questions about your resume, what major you're in, do you need help with that interview coming up for that internship? You're terrified of it. We can help you with that. So please connect with us. Also keep an eye on our social media. We've worked very hard on that. We've uploaded some wonderful video content on our Tamusa Mays YouTube channel. So make sure to tap into that. Again, thank you so much, David, and just everyone who attended. Greatly appreciate it. Wonderful Wednesday.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Clarissa.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.